had my first job when I was 17 as a hostess at Applebee's. Never had any restaurant or anything experience, but my sister had always served and everything, so I had like a little bit of what it, she'd come home and tell all the stories and all that. So starting to host, I got trained by a girl who had been there for 5 years. So she knew everything, and it was super intense when I first started, because going into a restaurant it's like a whole different atmosphere as opposed to just going in to eat, you being on the other side to work. So for hosting, she just kind of just let me to the wolves. It's just like, go. You had to kind of learn on your own of what to do. But it started just as a hosting, and then moved up to serving and bartending. I guess that would be the personal aspect of it, is how my sister kind of did it, and then I got to kind of follow her. I went to assistant manager also at Applebee's, but I started hosting, and then a year later went to serving. About a year and a half after that, I got to bar train, but I was only 19, so I wasn't even 21 yet when they let me start bartending. So that was really awesome, though. I got to get certification and all that, so that helps me move on to other places. I could say that I actually got bar trained and certified at a place that's super busy and all that. And then it was about a year after that they actually let me do the corporate training into being an assistant manager, just like a shift manager almost. So nothing too intense, but they let me I got to put that on my resume and all that, so that was pretty cool. So one of the main things I remember bartending is you get regulars and all that. So when they come in, and the best part about it is when you get to know them so much, like on a personal level, you know what they drink, you know what they like to order most of the time. When you see them come in, usually it's around the same time too. You can have their drink ready, or you have their food, you just put the food into the system. So when they come in, they say hello and all that, you ask them how their day is, but like you know a little bit more about their lives than just a normal server or bartender. And it's nice to know that you're part of their day. Like they come in to see you, and you have their drink ready, you have their food ready or something like that, and they really appreciate that. Sometimes they even, they'll tip better and all that too once you're their regular, or you're their bartender, you're their server and all that, and I love that part. The other part is the getting promoted part, because it's not often that you go from, serving or hosting even to serving to then bartending. And I only worked there for about 5 years too, and there had been people there for 10 years. So something really rewarding is when you it's kind of silly, but at Applebee's they give you a little pin every year that you're there, and when you got to build up your name tag with all your pins on it, that's super rewarding, being able to move up, having a place that actually has opportunity to advance and all that, so that's pretty awesome too. There have been other restaurants too, yeah. Another major one was called, it was Fox Hollow Golf Course, and that was awesome. I did the beverage cart, did the bartending and serving on the inside, and then banquets and events, weddings and things like that. And especially there to be part of like an event like that. I mean, that's somebody's big, either their wedding day or just some kind of party or something, but to be part of that whole system that works, and you being like, it might not seem like it, but you're a very important part of making that all happen and work smoothly and proficiently and effectively, so I really like that part. Usually working at a restaurant, you get some sort of discount, on the food and things like that. Is that what you mean, the perks? So I worked at Cody's Roadhouse in Tarpon Springs, and theirs was probably the best because you got, it was basically half off of anything, whether you were working or not. So if I brought my family in, they usually took care of at least half the bill, and that was so nice, because it's nice to bring your family into where you work, especially if you like it and all that. You like the managers and the people you work with, and it's kind of like this whole thing, going to eat. But yeah, they'll take care of at least half of it. And then if you're working, most of the time, depending on the manager, but they'll give you a whole meal for free, because you're working, you're doing a double or something like that. You're working around all this great food, they can't expect you to not be hungry, right? So Cody's was the best. Applebee's, every year you got another $1 off. So eventually after 5 years, I was getting $5 off, which most of the time would be a free meal, but starting out you got $2.50 off of anything. So you could get like a kid's meal or something. You only spend about $2 on your meal. Some other perks about especially working in the restaurant is the flexibility of schedule. You know, if you have kids, I have a 1-year-old and all that. If you have kids, if you go to school mostly, they'll really work around that most of the time. So you can say, hey, I can't work Mondays or Tuesdays at this time, and so they'll schedule you something different. So that way it's not like that Monday through Friday 9 to 5 where that's it, you're stuck. You have to work those hours. You have to work around that. Probably like 90% of the time, the restaurant will work around your schedule and make it so you can work your shifts and not miss anything else in your life. So that's really cool too. Other perks. The hours, I guess. It's not necessarily just the 9 to 5, but you have, I mean, you could work a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift and have the whole rest of your day, or no weekends too, so that's cool. Well, the only thing that I was able to do was I worked for a very short time in Ohio with my uncle's restaurant, and it wasn't any experience that could have been really applied to being a hostess at Applebee's, but I at least was able to tell them I went out to eat a lot, you know, and I've watched, and mostly what they're looking for is your ability to be flexible and adapt and learn, you know, because of course they're going to train you anyway, but you have to be able to at least have some understanding as opposed to just coming in as a customer wanting to eat. You know, you kind of have to look at a little bit of how the background works and all that. So my advice would be, as long as you can explain that you are willing and able to learn the other part of it, they should give you a chance. But having no experience is kind of a little bit of a setback, I know, because it's the same thing for me. But once you can get your foot in the door, then you're able to, you know, have experience otherwise. I did. Okay, so at the golf course, so I don't really know a lot of the Rays players or the Bucks players. I couldn't tell them walking down the street, but all the guys working there, oh my gosh, they were always freaking out. But the main person was John Cena. You know him, the wrestler? Oh my gosh. Well, I'm like a huge fan, okay? So when he came in, I was just freaking out, like just all around freaking out. But, so he came in, and like all the Rays and the Bucks players would always come through. At the golf course, we had a gentleman named Chad, and he would come in almost every day at the same time. Older gentleman, probably in like his 80s, just super sweet. But his wife passed away, and so they would always come in together and sit at the same spot and all that. So they actually hosted her wake afterwards there. But something that he was really effective in helping me was I did a road trip to Missouri to have seen my boyfriend at the time, and he ended up putting my entire trip together for me. He called all these hotels and all these, like the AAA does their itinerary and all that. He printed that all out for me, had all my hotel reservations for me. Just a really all-around sweet guy. And he ended up having his birthday there. I think it was 82nd, something like that. And we all just went and had a party for him and all that. And I gave him a special present for helping me out with all that. It was just super sweet. It is super rewarding, those parts of it. You know, you don't even really feel like it's work at that point. It's basically being friends with somebody and just getting paid. Sometimes the managers will be very, like micromanaging. At that point, you know, I've worked, coming up on 7 years. I know the gist of it. You know, I know how things are supposed to go, especially if I'm at a place for about a year or so. You know, you should know everything front and back of how to do your job. So managers will get on you about simple things that you already know, you know, and it can be very frustrating. Or they will, they'll make you do things that maybe you weren't always supposed to do, that wasn't in the job description per se, you know, and it really just affects like your whole vibe and all that. It's just like, you know what you need to do and just let me do it kind of thing, you know. I feel like there could be a lot. So the whole scheduling, you know, you really never know when you're going to get off. They could say, okay, you're working lunch shift, but lunch could be 2 to 6, and yet you're not walking out of there till 10 p.m. Like all of a sudden you get this major rush and they can't let you go. Well, if you had plans or something like that, well, kind of too bad, because you're still working, you're stuck. And the magical words are you're cut in the restaurant. You're cut meaning you're done. You get to do all your side work and you get to get out of there. But you don't start hearing all those words until the restaurant dies down. So even if you're still busy, if you should have left 2 hours ago, you're still working until the rush of people are gone. That's definitely a downside. I definitely agree with that. I worked at a place called Safety Harbor Bar and Grill, and we had this girl, and they were very, very lax on how you train somebody. Basically, they just wanted you to know the menu. They wanted you to serve, write the tickets, put them in the kitchen, bring the food out. They didn't necessarily care too much about everything else. However, this one girl would come in, and when they come in already, this is how we did it at our restaurant. This is how I know how to do it. Like, we had a busser, and he bussed all your tables, he rolled all the silverware, and he reset your tables. And that was his job. But this girl came in bussing tables, rolling silverware, and resetting the tables. And it was like, don't do that. You know, wait, we have somebody for that. Well, I did that at my old job, but you're not going to do that here. You know, so I definitely understand the whole, she couldn't get past that we didn't need her to do that kind of thing. Definitely have to be adaptable. Like, you could be on a lunch shift. That was my main shift at Applebee's, bartending, and it could be the slowest shift ever, and then all of a sudden you just get this rush and you have to just be able to go on the drop of a dime. You have to be able to be flexible in that sense too. There's a word I'm looking for. Whatever, I don't know. Basically, detail-oriented too, and being very punctual, because the customers will notice that. Like, the little things I used to do was like put a little mint in my checks, you know, when I dropped the check off, and like Applebee's didn't do that, but that was just kind of my thing. Like, around Valentine's Day, it would be like a little Hershey Kiss or something like that. Little details like that really do make a difference for customers themselves, and that's how you build up regulars, because that's how really you can make most money, is when you have regulars. So the more impact that you make on their dining experience, and them being happy and leaving there and being satisfied and saying that they had a good time, that they want to come back, because that's what you really want to do, is make it so they come back, you know, for the restaurant obviously too. Is like just little things, be very detailed, know your menu, do your homework on it too, know the menu before you even go in, be proficient with like computers and have some sort of something, being able to learn that. Getting more work. A lot of places will have some sort of scheduling thing that you can either request more shifts. Like at Applebee's, we had something called hot schedules, and that was like the best system that I'd ever seen working in any of the restaurants, because you were able to press a button and it would give up your shift to let other people see it, but you could also request shifts. So as soon as, like, if I had more free time on Friday or something like that, because Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday are basically the best days to work in hospitality, restaurants, I mean. You could just put that out there, and if anybody else didn't want to work, you could just easily pick that shift up. And I know for me, when I'm working, that's all I really kind of want to do, so I always put the word out, like, if you don't want any shifts, please ask me first, kind of thing, which in turn, obviously, you get more money. Cody's had this little, every month they did like a little contest, who could sell the most of something, and the more you sell, like if you were that winner or whatever, you got a little bonus. Sometimes it was $25, sometimes $50 if you won both. So that was another little way. But the main thing is regulars. You get more regulars, and typically the whole thing is that they end up tipping you more. Or, you know, around Christmas time at the golf course, they actually bought you presents. They gave you little cards, Christmas cards. They'd have gift cards or cash, things like that. But that would, I say, would be the best thing is having regulars. The best feeling is when you get to take your shoes off. It's the best. So after you get home, for me, I like to talk about my day, you know, whether the good or the bad part. Usually my mom's the one that gets to deal with that. But talking about it or whatever, you know, if you have somebody else that also works with you, you know, you go out, maybe get a drink if you are old enough, you know. when I was working 2 jobs, it was working 11 to 4 and then 5 to midnight. So there wasn't much of a wind down period, but when you do, oh my gosh, you just go and you lay down in bed, you watch the movies, completely forget about a restaurant in general, or you go out to another restaurant and you eat or get some drinks, something like that. That is what I'm doing, actually. So I went and got associates, and that went up. I think I've got about $10,000 in student debt. So if I wasn't working, you know, I wouldn't ever be able to pay that off. So every month I have a bill of $50 that I have to pay. But you can't pay more if you want, obviously. So if I make better money that month, I definitely throw more money that way, because that's a big debt that you don't want to have. But you can definitely pay off or work to pay off a lot of things. I also have a new car. I had a new car. But the main thing about that was that I got a letter from the job I was working at that, because your pay stubs or whatever won't show exactly what you make working as a server, so that can hurt you. But a lot of the restaurants will, you know, type a nice letterhead up and type out a piece of paper that tells you exactly what you make or around what you make, so that can help you, you know, get an apartment or a car or something like that. But it'll help with that and paying things off too. It was $250. It was for, I think, a 10-hour shift, and that's not including the hourly. So you know, after taxes and all that get taken out, it was probably about, let's see, probably almost close to $300. And if you do that a couple times a week, you're pretty good. A lot of the places you have to have non-slip shoes, but at Applebee's we had a catalog that you could look through to pick, because they were all certified and pre-approved. So the shoes that worked best for me were these Crocs, actually, believe it or not, and you could put these gel insoles in it, because on the bar mats, when you are working behind the bar mats are like, they're just little mats, but they affect how much different it is than walking on a regular floor. So having the insoles and all that can really, really help. It makes a huge difference. You got to replace them about every month, but because you just wear them out so much from walking and all that, but that helps a lot. It's sad, but yeah. I mean, we had a bartender who everyone just loved him. I mean, from younger, you know, ladies to like older ladies, they all came in for him. He was very good looking. But then you had this other woman who I worked with who wasn't as attractive, and her bar wouldn't be as full. So as sad as it is, but it's totally true, I think. You get better opportunities sometimes too. I mean, they might choose, you know, someone else to work the outside bar on a really busy beach day, as opposed to somebody that doesn't quite look like that person. You know what I mean? It's sad. So at Applebee's, there was one thing, like one drink that you could give away, just one, you know, per your shift, depending on the manager. But you could choose, you know, a round of beers or a single liquor drink. So what I would do is that single liquor drink was 2.5 ounces. And so for the people who I liked or thought maybe I needed to make a better impression, I would use a little bit of that 2.5 extra ounces to put into their drink, so that they knew that they were getting a little bit more. And a little tip is, you know, you put instead of putting the liquor on the bottom, you put the liquor on the top, so then when you put the straw in, their first sip is liquor, so they think their drink is even stronger and that you did them a favor, you know, when you really just put like maybe a little bit more in, you know. But then I could divide that little bit up, as opposed to just giving away one drink. I could give it to a little bit more people, make it better. It's sneaky. Find a good restaurant that you think that you can definitely advance, even if it's just one position. You know, going in as a hostess, I didn't think that I would become an assistant manager in 5 years, but it happened. You know, I was hoping to at least go to serving. So when the other opportunities presented itself, obviously that was pretty cool too. But definitely try to find a restaurant that you know, that you've heard of, you know, that you know, at least if it's in your area, that people have good reviews about or good opinions, so that people like to go there. Because if you get into a place that's not that busy, you're not gonna want to stay there very long. You're gonna have to move on to another place. So as long as you can find a place even if it's corporate like Applebee's or Chili's or something like that, you know that they're always going to have that, the customer base is like the amount of people are always going to come there, you know, no matter what, because it's such a huge chain and all that, that it's well known and all that. So to get into a place like that is probably the best, and somewhere that has an opportunity to at least advance one more. So if you're serving, you know, trying to get into bartender or something like that, because always stepping up a little bit, you always make a little bit more money, or there's a little bit more incentive or something like that.